Hello everybody, welcome back to High Ground. My name is Tanner, and today we're going to be taking a look at the 20 teams that qualified for the Montreal Major in Rainbow Six Siege, and some really exciting developments in pretty much all the regions across the board, even some big upsets in the major regions. We'll talk about them as we go down the line, but only 10 of the 20 teams that were at the last major in Manchester actually qualified for Montreal, so only half the teams returning. And just a quick note, when I say the last big event, that was EWC a few months ago, but the last actual major was Manchester, so just a little bit of a differentiating factor. EWC isn't technically a true major, but it is basically a de facto major at this point. So let's just go down the line. Start with Europe, and keep in mind a lot of these regions also have teams in phase one that we'll see in a minute. BDS come into the event probably as the event favorites in general. They won EWC a few months ago, and a few months before that they were the runners-up in the Manchester Major. The team that beat them, Beast Coast, isn't at this event, and in fact none of the teams that beat them there are at this event. They also lost to Talon and Furia in the Swiss portion, and neither of them qualified, so it's looking better and better for BDS. They did look a little bit shaky against Secret in Europe, who I think pretty clearly look like the second best European team at the moment, but BDS is coming in as that first seed for a reason. So moving on to Secret, yeah, they gave BDS a run for their money. They looked pretty solid. They look like they're playing the meta well. If there is another European team to look out for besides BDS, it's got to be these guys. They did really well in Manchester. They went 3-0 in Swiss, no losses, and then they did only make it to top 8, but they got eliminated by BDS. So maybe if they played a different team in the quarterfinals, maybe they could have had a top 4 appearance. Then we have Virtus Pro. I think pretty surprising to see these guys here, honestly. I don't think a lot of people expected it, given what we've seen from them recently. Their last international event was SI, where they actually did really well. They were pretty close to making the finals, and it just doesn't seem like they play the meta particularly well. They're definitely not a team known for adapting, but I guess they're a team known for longevity. This roster has been going for years and years and years now. Joystick and Shepard are two of the absolute longest standing players in the entire game, and this is probably my favorite European team, so I'll be keeping an eye on them, but I don't necessarily have the highest hopes for them. Then we have Sonics, who come in as the first seed from North America. This team didn't qualify for the previous major, but they picked up Canadian, they picked up Surf, they won North America League just by the skin of their teeth. They went all 45 rounds. Really incredible game up against Dark Zero, but Sonics did clinch it, and I think they're probably North America's best hope. Beast Coast aren't here, the reigning major champions. They're not here to defend their titles, and with Canadian on a team, that just gives you a fantastic shot no matter how you look at it. But even besides Canadian, just absolutely stacked as far as talent goes on this roster, and we'll have to see how they play internationally. Then we have Dark Zero, the team that Canadian was recently on, and I'd say even more so than Beast Coast, these guys have been the, on average, best international team from North America. Obviously, they didn't have the recent major win that Beast Coast did, but they've had a bunch of top 8s, top 6, top 4s in the last year. They've done it so consistently, and losing Canadian, it felt like it was going to be a bigger blow than I guess it's turned out to be, because they only lost 2 games within North America. Their very first best of 1 against Sonics, and their very last best of 3 also against Sonics. So maybe Sonics just have their number. They haven't lost a game otherwise, and they still have 4/5 of that really impressive team in NJR, Pambazoo, Bolo, and Nafe. I think Kobilax really still needs to prove himself. He had a few good moments in North America, but he's looked pretty shaky overall. So we'll have to see if this team really has the legs to compete internationally without Canadian. That's still a big question mark, but no doubt they were very impressive in North America. And then we have the third North American team, Space Station. And these guys, they really haven't seemed like an absolute top tier threat for a while, but they do seem like a team that can win basically any game they go into, or at least make it really, really close. It would feel, I think, surprising to see these guys in a grand final, but I would not be surprised at all to see them in top 8, top 4 territory, and I would be very happy to see them in the grand final. FaZe, Cyber Souls, Vidaking, Handy, and KDS, same team that played in the SI grand final and really let it slip. And they lost to Furia there. They lost to Beast Coast in Manchester, and neither of those teams are at this event. Maybe FaZe will find a different team to choke against, but I'd say probably they're the tournament favorites just behind BDS for this event. Really one to watch out for. They were clearly the best team in Brazil this stage. And then we have a Liquid not too far behind. They actually look really solid for the first time in quite some time. I guess they did really well at the last couple of events, actually. They made top 4 in Manchester, eliminating Furia. and that was the first time Furia got eliminated from an event in like a year, so that was a really big accolade. It just seems like Maya has fit this roster a lot better than Volps did, and you might call them the third favorite. I think the big four coming into the event feel like BDS, FaZe, Liquid, and Sonics, with maybe Dark Zero right behind, maybe like Secret, W7M, Space Station in the mix there, something like that. But anyways, I would probably call Liquid one of the top 4 favorites coming into the event. And, you know, Liquid, they used to have so many expectations riding on them. Almost every event they were thought of as like one of, if not the tournament favorites. And then, you know, they just never won. Lagonis does have a trophy, but it was not when he was on Liquid. So a team to watch out for, but they are also renowned choke masters. W7M, they were not in Manchester, but they were just in the grand final of Esports World Cup. And Dash, Dodez, Dots, Loban, and Volps are the team. I think people do still sort of have some questions about Dash and Dots if they're actually top tier players, but Dodez, Loban, and Volps have really proven themselves to be phenomenal players. A team to watch out for sure. And then we have Scars. I mean, they made top 8 in Copenhagen. I think that's their only impressive showing internationally. I wouldn't call them absolute pushovers, but now that we're beyond the, you know, the likes of the top teams in Europe, North America, and Brazil, we are sort of no longer talking about the top teams. So maybe they'll get some wins. I would be sort of surprised to see them make top 8. Then we have D+, making the return to international play after not too long. At one point, they were one of the top teams in the world. They were one round away from making a major grand final, and at one SI, they were thought of as one of the event favorites coming into it. They were really good in groups, and then they sort of fell apart in bracket. But anyways, they're pretty far removed from that. We'll have to see what they do here. They haven't looked nearly as menacing for quite some time, but a team to watch out for, I suppose. Then we have Elevate from Asia, taking the spot away from Bleed. Pretty big shocker. Bleed had made a bunch of events in a row. That Bleed squad had been the top dog in the region for quite some time. Then moving on to phase number 1, back to Europe, we have G2 occupying the champion of the European LCQ once again. They didn't do anything with it last time around. They went 0-2, they got smoked. Pretty tragic end. Now they don't have Benjamaster, they don't have Virtue, and Blaz and Loira coming out of the squad was questioned, but hey, they managed to qualify for the event at the very least, and the bar is absolutely on the floor. They could get last again, but it would not be worse than last time, because that's also what they got last time. I would really expect them to make it out of phase 1 this time around, but I did also expect that last time, and they did not do it. So we'll have to see what G2 is cooking up internationally. Then we have CL4L, the absolute underdogs of all time. If there's a team to root for, it is these guys. Even if you're a big fan of other teams, like you just gotta root for these guys. It's been so long since we've seen a non-tier 1 team at a tier 1 event. And yeah, it's been many years, and almost all of them actually in the past were European teams like M&M and Secret and a few others that managed to qualify for tier 1 events when they were not tier 1 teams. And actually, 3 of these guys have never even played in tier 1. Packer and Adam do have tier 1 experience, but Bino, Giddy, and Tristan, this will be their tier 1 debut in any regard. So definitely keep your eye on these guys. This will be, I think, the most exciting team to watch, especially if they make it out of phase number 1, which I think is entirely possible considering the competition they're up against. Then we have Black Dragons. This is actually the debut for 4 of these players. It's not the Org's first time making an international appearance, but Ask is the only one of them with international experience. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure that's right. Guto, Nuxka, Florio, and Hornatau. Pretty nasty sounding roster, especially Guto and Nuxka. These are just grimy sounding names. But anyways, a bunch of these guys making their tier 1 debuts. They beat Furia in the Brazilian LCQ. This is the first time Furia is not at an international event since Charlotte. They were on a streak from Charlotte in 2022 all the way up until, I guess, Esports World Cup even. So phenomenal run from them. It's finally been ended, and Black Dragons were the ones to do it. Then we have Cyclops. They've been to a lot of international events over the year. They got crushed at pretty much all of them. Yonchping being one of their best showings. I'd say that actually their last major in Manchester was a better performance, but there used to be fewer teams at majors, so that sort of skews the numbers a little bit. I wouldn't say they're a team to watch out for. I guess they did make it out of phase 1 last time around. I wouldn't necessarily bet on it happening again. We'll see. Fear X, another team sort of similar. They've been to a lot of international events, and they pretty much always get smoked. They now have Jax on the roster, former ENS player, so that's maybe a reason to keep an eye on these guys. They did eliminate G2 last time around, so I guess some reasons to maybe root for these guys, maybe to expect something from these guys, but they're certainly one of the lower tier teams overall. Then we have Chiefs taking the spot away from Bliss. Oda dropped from Bliss, comes over to Chiefs with the likes of Jigsaw and Tex, very experienced players, and they played them in the finals and they beat them. Finally, somebody else besides Bliss making it out of Oceania, which really felt like a one-team league for quite some time. Then we have Falcons taking the spot away from GK, who had been the MENA representative for the last few events. Falcons, it's not their first rodeo though. Hasham, I think a lot of people are anticipating his return a little bit. I wouldn't say I'm the most excited for Falcons internationally. I'd say maybe they're one of the more likely teams to make it out of phase 1, but besides that, I don't have high hopes for them. And finally, Alpha Team, they took the spot away from Cruelty, who had been the representative from this region for quite some time, and Cruelty always got last place. It has been proven that the LATAM region is the weakest region in Siege. And yeah, I think that concludes it. So let me know if you think my assessment of any of these teams are off. Let me know which teams you're most excited to watch. Obviously these guys. And that's going to do it for me. I'll catch you guys next time.